Hello, captains, and welcome to the channel. I am your host, USS Endeavor. We are in the Tier 8 Tech Tree German Battlecruiser, the Prince Rupprecht. And I have got to tell you right off the get-go, this is an absolute banger of a match. It is by far the most damage I've ever recorded in a standard battle in the 4 years I've been playing this game. So if you want to skip to the gameplay to see that, it's pretty short and it's a unique gameplay. You'll understand more whenever it loads up, but the code's at the bottom. Otherwise, stick around and we'll look at the build before we get started. I'm keeping the exact same build from pretty much the Zeton video. There's nothing that I have changed. From here on out, the build's not going to change pretty much at all. We will showcase a little bit of the differences, but Auto Celiax is the commander that I'm using, and I'm using his new perks in the second and third slot that increases our damage, range, and fire chance, which is why we have Fuso as an inspiration, who also adds to that. The module slots that I've selected are the exact same as in the Zeton video, and if you haven't seen that, go check that out. But we're also using the secondary mod in the first and fourth, boosting our secondaries, and in the second and third is the propulsion mod and the concealment mod. So let's take a look at the rest of the build. We have the same number of damage control parties, which is limited to 5. However, with Auto Celiax being reworked, we have 5 to use as opposed to 3 when I first got her. And the only difference between the sonar of the Zeton and the Prince Rupprecht is 0.1 kilometer better for the Rupprecht when it comes to detection of ships. So you can see them at 5.7 as opposed to 5.6. Hey, every little bit helps, right? Onto the survivability, you only have 1,000 HP more in hit points, although our torpedo damage reduction has increased from 22% to 25%. So it does give you a little bit more potential health. Looking at the artillery on the Rupprecht, you have 8 guns as opposed to the 6 that's on the Zeton. They're the exact same caliber. They have the exact same HE shell damage, fire chance, and AP shell damage. The only difference is that you have 8 guns as opposed to 6, like I said, and your reload on the Prince Rupprecht is 10 seconds longer. So it's a much longer reload on the Rupprecht. But having that extra turret, I guess, is where it makes up for the difference. Your secondary armament, you have the exact same characteristics for secondaries as the Zeton. You just get a couple more on the Rupprecht, and that's the only difference. Same fire chance, and but it's just the amount that you get is more on Rupprecht than on Zeton. And speaking of more, the torpedoes. You have 16 torpedoes. 2 quad launchers on both sides of the ship. So think Zeton, but more. There's a theme here. The Rupprecht is basically a Zeton, but more. It's the exact same range, the exact same torpedo speed, the same damage. You just get more of them. But they're mounted midship, which sometimes can be taken out. And although we do not face a carrier in this match, your AA defense is slightly better than the Zeton, although not by much. It's the exact same range. They just have a little bit more damage per second. So not much to change here, just a little bit more on the damage department. Onto the maneuverability. What has gone up for the Rupprecht is the maximum speed. You are over 30 knots now. However, your turning circle radius and rudder shift time are slightly worse, so you've got to keep that in mind. You are faster, but your ability to turn has diminished slightly from the Zeton. Your concealment is never really good in this thing. In fact, it has gotten slightly worse than the Zeton. Your detectability is a little over 13, even with the concealment mod attached. You are a little bit easier to spot in the air at 11 kilometers, and I never advise you to fire from smoke in a battleship because you just can't be concealed at almost 15 kilometers. It's not worth being in it. If we look at the individual ship stats, I'm almost 60% win rate, but I'll let you be the judge on whether or not I am a good Rupprecht player by the end of this. You make the call. Onto the armor, you will notice a similar theme with the bow and stern armor plating. It is 27 millimeters, just like on the Zeton. However, it's a little bit different shaped. It doesn't encompass as much of it. You do have a larger icebreaker, which you can kind of see right here. The icebreaker can bounce 406 millimeter shells, so the Yami and the Musashi can still overmatch your bow anywhere they want to. So that's the only real big threat you have to face if you're facing AP. Now, while I was looking at the armor, I noticed something really weird. Do you notice that small little rectangular, basically empty space right above that blue section? There's no armor there. And I was like, wow, so you can actually punch right through, but then before you get excited, there's a barbette there that covers that hole. So that is a little bit of a false opening there. So the barbette is very heavily armored, so don't think you can just shove right through that little empty gap. But I just wanted to showcase that because I hadn't seen that before. Onto the casemate armor, you have a 32 millimeter deck with that 20 millimeter blue section, like I said, but the barbettes are there, so chances are it's going to be impossible to punch through the bow through that. You'll take out the turret before you get a Citadel against you. Speaking of the Citadel, it is, I believe, from what I can see here, right at the water line. It might be slightly above. Shoot, it might be slightly below. It's just kind of hard to tell from this angle, but just think waterline. The important thing to remember is that you have no turtleback scheme, so you can still get Citadel'd right there, and that is the length of your Citadel that extends all the way from the front turret to the back turret. Now, on to the gameplay, and it is awesome. This is my damage high score, and it's only in a 6v6 match, comprised almost entirely of battleships except for the Rune that's on our team. That poor Rune. So right here at the Rip, we're on the map north. We spawn at Charlie, and based off of just the way that the ships are spaced out, it's probably 2 battleships in front of me at each spawn. So here I am pinging Charlie, and I'm asking the battleship behind me, which is an Iwami, to please help me in Charlie. And he asked for my help. I'm asking for his help. And I'm going to push straight in, hoping he will support me. However, this guy, unbeknownst to me, is going to go all the way around on the far left side and completely take himself out of the fight right from the get-go. When you are in a small, like, numbered game like this, each ship's responsibility and the impact that you can have only goes up. And here the Iwami is turning broadside, so we're going to take our first shot at him, and we get rewarded with a nasty 18k salvo. No Citadels, 5 pins, 1 overpin. Of the 8 shells we threw, 6 hit, and 5 of them did really good damage. The Azumo could be a problem, but he is going to be flinging HE at us, and the only reason why I believe he's using that shell type is because of that silly mission that has been here since the beginning that requires the Japanese ships to get fire damage, I guess. So that's why he's shooting HE at us, which is probably the only reason why we survive as long as we do. But here we're pushing straight into the cap. As you can see, our battleship, the Iwami, who is behind us, is completely out of the fight. So it's literally me all alone against these 2 battleships. But the Prince Rupprecht can take it. And the Iwami shot his torpedoes at us. We knew they were coming, which is why I have the hydro going, and wanted to get the information quickly. Here, the Iwami that spawned mid is focusing us, which is not good, and there he takes a nasty whack at us. So I'm essentially going up against 3 battleships all by myself. 2 of them I can focus, 1 of them I can't right now. The Iwami has already exhausted his torpedoes on that side, so I'm not worried about his torps. So I'm trying to angle against him because his AP could be devastating. Because the Azumo is only shooting HE, I feel confident I can expose my broadside to the Izumo. There are torpedoes of the 16 that we have. Took out the Iwami. Now we're shooting our torps at the Izumo on the right-hand side. But if you notice, one of our torpedoes got permanently knocked out on the right-hand side. So we only have one set, which I didn't realize at the time. So I was like, well, I'll just get my other set on him, but that's not going to work. So now I'm left with no torpedoes to use, and we're really close. I was scared to death that this Izumo was going to ram me, and I'm really low health, and I'm like, you know what? I think I can get a drive-by on this guy if I just play it right. He's still shooting HE at us, which, again, I'm thankful for. Otherwise, he could absolutely devastate us if he shot us through the bow, but he chooses not to. The Iwami is being really annoying at Bravo, but here we go. We're trying to get the guns around. I'm shooting furiously, and we get 4 sits up close. Totally taking him out, getting a dev strike. So thanks, Iwami, who, quote-unquote, supported me. Here he's finally making his way through the gap to get to Charlie, but all the work's already been done. And I know I blew through the cap at Charlie, but I wanted to take on these 2 ships. I had to. There was no way I was going to cap that thing while they were still alive anyway. So I debated going back, but when I saw that our battleship is going in there, thankfully, at least they're going to do something, I decided to move on. And this Iwami, who has been pestering us earlier, well, it's time for some payback. He's trying to get Bravo cap. He was taking free hits at us. It's time to repay the favor. And although I am really low and he practically has all his health and I am down to I'm very low compared to him. I want you to just kind of see this next transition where we reset the cap on Bravo, and now we're going to be pushing in. I'm trying to get all my guns to bear. I'm waiting for him to get spotted. And as soon as he does, now that our guns are ready, we're going to take another shot at him, and as soon as we shoot, we're going to immediately stop and turn in, so that if he shoots, we're going to try and negate as much as he can against us, whilst getting as much as we can off him. There we get another 3 defend ribbons. He is not taking that cap, and I am going to do everything I can to wipe him off the board. And right at this point, I looked up at the upper right-hand corner, and I was like, what? I'm basically at 200k damage. I had no idea. Honest to goodness, I did not know I was at that damage until at this point. And I was shocked, for one. I've never really... It's hard to get to 200k just in a full lobby. And here it is in a reduced lobby. And we're already over 200k with a Citadel against that Iwami as well. So he's starting to turn around. He'd already thrown his torps at us. So I'm assuming he's going to make the full turn, which is why I threw those torps in the gap. And I know he's going to try and get that other set off to us, because at this point, that's all he's got. We're still basically at the same amount of health that we started this engagement, and the Iwami has lost a lot of health. Here we threw another set at this gap, and I had contemplated throwing the other one, but if in the event something weird happened, and here we get 2 shells, and they're both Citadels. The rear turret of Justice takes a huge chunk, and we're over 250k damage. Wow, I've already superseded the most damage I've ever had with that shot, and now everything is just frosting on the cupcake. And there we take him out, and then the Musashi's shooting at us, so it's been nonstop action. And we just eclipsed 260. Can we get any more damage? I don't know. We take a shot. Again, the rear turret of Justice. Can we do any more with this thing? Oh, he's almost out. Oh, we get a high cal. And you're probably thinking, well, why didn't you get a high cal when you had over 260k? Well, according to the game, you have to have you have to have damage against 4 ships, and unfortunately we get taken out there by the Musashi, which I didn't think he could clear that island. But you have to get damage on 4 ships, but the total damage has to be over 40% of all the ships in the game. So that rear turret just had to nick them, and we got the high caliber. So there we go, guys. The victory, 264,000 damage 3,363 base XP. Just an unreal, crazy game. We didn't hit the damage record, but in case you were wondering, the damage record for the Rupprecht is at 348,000, and the base XP record is almost 4K. And the reason I looked this up on wowsbuilds.com, I'll put a link in the description so you can see it, but it's got a great place for builds, damage records, how to equip your ship. So if you're looking for information on how to make your ship better or see what popular builds are, check out that website. It's a great resource. So anyway, captains, that was quick, short, furious, and high damage, and I loved it. I hope you guys did too. Like, share, subscribe, comment. These results are not typical, even for me, but I couldn't pass up a match like this to show you guys. That's going to do it for the Rupprecht. I might get another one here in the future, but for this series, I'm going to use that one. Next is the Schlieffen. Boy, I feel like I've set the bar too high, but I'm going to try and get a really good game in that one as well. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I enjoyed it. I hope you did. And this is the USS Endeavor signing off.